Hi, it's Leslie and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to do a quick book review on The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is an adult fantasy that, for a quick synopsis, is about a man named Zachary who finds a book in a library that seems to have been written about him, describes him, tells sort of his story, and he wants to figure out where this book came from, who wrote it, and that sort of leads him on this journey into the Starless Sea. I will say overall, I did not love this story. I really wanted to. I read The Night Circus years ago, probably when it first came out, and I loved it. I remember really enjoying it, flying through that book. So I was so excited to read Erin Morgenstern's next book. Unfortunately, I was super disappointed. For the things that I liked about the story, we'll start there. I do enjoy Erin Morgenstern's writing. She is able to make everything sound very pretty. It's very easy, like her language flows really nicely. It is incredibly flowery and very over descriptive. So if you don't like that type of writing, you probably won't love this, but it's still very romantic. That's probably the best way I could describe it. Listening to the book, the audiobook, which is 18 and a half hours, mind you, I liked that. I kept feeling like I was going to be able to sink my teeth into the story at some point, which, spoiler alert, I didn't. But I was thinking I could, which is why I kept on with the story. For maybe the negative parts of the book, at least for me, my negative review of this is in three parts: characters, plot, and story structure. First, with the characters. There's a decent sized cast of characters here, and they all were very one-dimensional to me. I did not see any character growth for any of the characters. And Zachary, the main character, he does kind of go through a wild ride, but I didn't see any change in him, nothing interesting. He's pretty much the same person from the beginning to the end. And I didn't get that. I don't understand why the characters were written that way. As far as plot, there is no plot in this story. I would love to have somebody tell me what the actual plot is, but there's nothing. There's no action, there's no climax, there's no resolution, there's nothing. It's just this meandering story. Now, typically with books that have far less plot, they're very character heavy and you see all this growth and this interest in the characters, but this book had neither. So therefore, there's nothing to say about the story as a whole, which comes to the third point, which is the story structure, which for me is maybe its biggest flaw, which is it kind of uses these smaller stories all together, these vignettes or fairy tales that are kind of woven together. They follow maybe a couple of characters at a time, jumps back and forth from those stories into the main story. So you'll talk about the pirate and the acolyte for parts, and then it will jump back to Zachary and where he is trying to figure out this book. So jumping all around with no plot and with no character development, the book just fell so flat for me. It just was this airy bubble of nothingness. Now, people may say that means, oh, you'll love this book with great world building. But even that, like, I still don't understand what the Starless Sea is. I don't understand this underground library and these things. And I'm not spoiling anything because add it all together, it still doesn't make any sense. There are owls and bees, which I guess brings to this other point of symbolism. So many symbols that by the end, I still don't know what they mean. There are bees, there's honey, which I guess those two are connected, swords, the wind, the Parliament of Owls and the Owl King. Like, what do these things have in common? I still don't know. I don't get it. So I just struggle to say that this is a book that's a cohesive story. It's just sentences put together that maybe follow some similar characters. And then at the end, you're supposed to think, wow, that really spoke to my soul. But I'm like, I don't even know what I just listened to. My best comparison is to this modern day Instagram poetry, which I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because people love it. But you know who I'm talking about, the Instagram poets and the other 21st century poets who write 4 lines and call that poetry. I see a girl. She has a friend. They were brave. Like, that is the current poetry that we love in our society, which I don't get. It's so shallow. It's like a fortune cookie. And to me, like, that's kind of what this book is. It's the Instagram poetry of a fantasy. That is probably too far, but it's so much. Like it's 500 pages long of a story that I don't know any more from the end than I did at the beginning. That's just frustrating as a reader. And I've seen a lot of people on Goodreads in their reviews saying, I can't wait to read it again, and then I'll really see how everything connected. Well, I shouldn't have to read a book twice to understand it. That's not great storytelling, in my opinion. To me, this book felt just so pretentious. It reminds me of a book that you would go to a party and someone would say, oh, have you read The Starless Sea? And I would say, yeah, but I don't know, I don't really get it. And that person would say, oh, well, it's so like, it speaks to your soul and it's about stories and fate. And you would just, maybe you're not smart enough for it. That's what that book is. It's so pretentious. It references books, so many different books, so many different authors, but even like pretty obscure authors, which to me just points to the pretension that, oh, you know who Donna Tartt and Sarah Waters are? Like, oh, you're so well read. That's frustrating. I understand when books reference Charles Dickens and Jane Austen because these are authors people have heard of their whole lives. But I mean, come on, Donna Tartt and Sarah Waters are not the most famous authors, and the majority of people will have no idea who they are. So recalling them and talking about their books in more than just a passing flip, like, oh, Zachary was reading this, just it's annoying. It's annoying to me because it feels like a book that's so out of the league of everyday readers, and it just feels unfair. It feels unfair and inaccessible to a lot of people. That's a bit of a rant, and I'm sorry, but that's really how I felt after reading it. Like, this is just a book that people will say they love, to say that they're deep and profound, but nobody gets it. I'm sorry, there's nothing to get. Like, that's the joke. It's nothing. So I will leave it at that. I still think Erin Morgenstern has all the potential in the world. I will probably read anything she writes. I hope this video doesn't stop you from reading it, even though that's what it sounds like, but I would much prefer somebody to read it and say, Leslie, you are crazy. That book was amazing. It had all of this and you didn't get it. You just missed it. And I would love that. I would love for somebody to come back and tell me, girl, I read it and you were so off mark. And if you have read it, please leave in the comments what I missed, or if you also agree, because I do feel like there is a bit of a split on Goodreads as to those who really loved it and those who didn't. And I'll leave it with this. There is so much talk about honey in that book that I thought Winnie the Pooh had written part of it. I mean, there's nobody else in the world who's as obsessed with honey than Winnie the Pooh or Erin Morgenstern. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.